It's time to do business again. Updates from the world of business. We have 55 minutes to do it. And here's what we have prepared for you on this episode of Business Incorporated. Egypt is leading on the continent when it comes to startup investment for the month of May. After losing billions of shillings, Kenya is suspending VAT online registration. Ghana gets $77 million grants from Switzerland. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's do business. Starting from the global space, oil prices climbed on Tuesday as investors are awaiting the outcome of the U.S.-China talks, the second day of it. And Saudi Arabia's crude supply to China is set to dip slightly. So for this afternoon, we see it's green, 0.24%. That's about 16 cents for Brent, bringing it up to $67.16 a barrel. WTI is also up 0.15%, $65.42 a barrel. On Monday, Brent had risen to $67.19. That's the highest level since April 28, buoyed by the prospect of a U.S.-China trade deal. U.S.-China trade talks were set to continue for a second day today in London as top officials aim to ease tension that have expanded from tariffs to rare earth curbs, risking global supply chain disruptions and slower growth. Prices have recovered as demand concerns have faded with the trade talks between Washington and Beijing and a favorable U.S. jobs report that came out on Friday. While there are risks to North America's supply because of wildfires in Canada, according to Goldman Sachs, and U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the talks with China were going on well and he was only getting good reports from his team in London. A trade deal between the U.S. and China could support global economic outlook and boost demand for commodities, including oil. Still on the global space, gold prices edged high on Tuesday while investors are awaiting more clarity from that talking going on in London. And they look forward to key U.S. inflation data that's due later on this week for clues of what the Federal Reserve's future interest rates decision would look like. I will see the numbers for this afternoon. It's a red one for spot gold, 0.5% down, $3,311.16 a barrel for an ounce. U.S. gold is also down 0.7%, $3,330.90 per ounce. Spot silver is also down. So we know that these metals act as a hedge. So when things are looking good and demand for them go down. So that's why we're seeing this red color, 0.6% for spot silver at $36.51. Platinum is also down much more than that, 0.8% at $1,210.46. And palladium dropped 0.2% to $1,071.75 a barrel. I remember the talks going on in London is a major driver of this. There's optimism, and then it reflects, shows in the red for metals. Now we come to Afrexim Bank because the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim, they finally reacted to Fitch's recent downgrade of its long-term issuer default rating to BBB- from BBB, which reflects higher solvency risks. And according to the bank, Fitch's negative outlook decision is hinged on the erroneous view in some quarters that the treaty establishing the Afrexim Bank, executed by its 53 participating African states, can be violated by the bank without consequences. Afrexim Bank clarifies that the bank establishment agreement is a treaty entered into by and among all participating states and between the participating state and the bank. Accordingly, Afrexim Bank would like to reaffirm that it is not participating in debt restructuring negotiations related to any of its member countries. To do so, they say, would be inconsistent with the Bank Establishment Treaty. The treatment of its loans and other activities is governed by the treaty and not by classifications created outside its framework. Afrexim Bank says its financial resilience, robust governance, and unwavering commitment to excellence and to Africa are critical to the delivery of its mandate. The bank remains committed to supporting its member countries in navigating their economic challenges. And now the Federal Inland Revenue Service has revised its standard operating procedure as part of efforts to improve consistency, transparency, and service delivery in tax administration across the country. According to a statement issued by Mr. Collins Omokaro, Special Advisor on Communication Strategy and Advocacy to the Executive Chairman of FIRS, the revised SOP offers a unified framework for core tax processes, including registration, payments, audits, and enforcement. The revised SOP, he says, is designed to eliminate such disparities by providing a single, clear roadmap for operations in all of the services that's over 300 offices nationwide. And now the Nigerian Association of Chambers, Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, believes that the lack of coordination among government agencies has denied the country of major gains from policies targeted at small businesses. The president of NASIMA, Dr. Deloye, who was a guest on Business Morning earlier today, is asking that the Nigeria Investment Promotion Council should be empowered to be the coordinator.
We can turn this ability to opportunity if we have a unified position on it, where we can access resources in one platform. This idea of having several platforms working in silos is our challenge. And it's also an opportunity if government can see and use its own institutions already established by law to enhance this. I'm not saying the NIPC should be the operator, but at least they should have access to resources to tell us if we say we need information on AI that's been done. We should be able to go to NIPC as their one-stop shop to do it. So what I'm saying is, with our experiences and all the travels we've made home and abroad, we've seen that countries use their institutions, especially the NIPC, to drive their investment. But we have in Nigeria, you see different ministers going for investment promotion and several. They don't even include or encourage that agency to know what they are doing. So this is what I'm saying. I did a lecture recently on the annual conference, and I observed that most of them, they don't even have information about several sectors within their own states or even at the federal level. And this is a challenge. Because if someone is going to speak for you, is going to encourage investment, you should have access to every information available on every government platform.
And still in the morning, financial derivatives company sees May inflation decline from 23.71 in April to 23.15%. The Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bismarck Rawani, says that the drop may not be sustainable as global trade factors are still uncertain.
Right. Two things. One is that the exchange rate has stabilized and has actually appreciated marginally. The difference between the power and the official market has narrowed to about 35 to 40 naira. We also seen a drop in the price of diesel and petrol at this time, and we are also beginning to see, we've seen some not a contraction, but a slowdown in the rate of increase in money supply. So those are the major issues. But generally speaking, logistics costs have reduced. The key drivers, again, lower diesel price, base day effect, and generally speaking, the Hajj and the Hajj period and effect is having a dampening effect on prices. So what we saw in the last month was, and that was before the flood in Mokwa. All right, we saw prices begin to moderate. We saw that the exchange rate stabilized. We saw the price of diesel drop to below 1,000 naira for the first time in many years. And we also saw that the expectations, especially because Dangote was bringing down the price of petrol and diesel, people were no longer scared that the price of logistics costs would be increasing. I think there was some kind of cautious optimism amongst investors, manufacturers, and farmers.
Let's stay on that oil and gas sector now. And of course, we're counting down to June 12th. That's just on Thursday, just Wednesday in between. We're speaking to, well, an indigene from the Niger Delta region, from River State to be precise, right here, the Chief Executive Officer of Steam Group, Mr. Somi Uranta, right here in the studio. Let's see some of those things Mr. Urani has counted as positives, perhaps if the people in the Niger Delta region are feeling it. You're welcome to the program, Mr. Uranta.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So 2 years into President Bola Tinubu's administration, we still have oil as our mainstay in the country. But how are the people from the region feeling the revenue, the policies, and all?
In fact, the people of Niger Delta have never had it so bad. You know, the economy is on the downturn. I mean, every area of the economy is struggling. But those from the Niger Delta are bearing the hardest brunt of it. Because if, for example, like things are very difficult, cost of things have hit the roof, and there are no jobs, you know, companies are folding. People who are maybe from Lagos or from, say, Ibadan or Sokoto or Maiduguri or any of these places, youths from those areas can decide, okay, let me go to the farm, let me farm. Those that have water around their area, they go and do some fishing. These are the things Niger Delta people do while I was growing up. But the way it is, those of the Niger Delta cannot afford to do any of those things because the environment is polluted. You can't fish, you can't farm, you can't even drink water. So we're having it. If Nigerians are struggling and suffering, you know, trying to brace up to the challenge of fuel subsidy removal and the consequences of it, then those from Niger Delta are suffering it far more than any other person.
But why would you say that? I mean, well, if I was to start from the biggest space, the reforms of the government has received a lot of applause. That's on the one hand. But on the other hand, some of these things you're talking about, they're not new. They've been there even before this administration. So we cannot totally blame, you know, the present administration. But why would you say it is worse in that area now? What makes it worse?
Well, I don't know the part of Nigeria where you live in, but I know that Nigerians are groaning. You know, prices of things are beyond the reach of the ordinary Nigerians. The things you buy today, you go there tomorrow, you'll be surprised if the price is still maybe double the price, if it's not triple. So, but what I'm saying is that people of the Niger Delta are suffering more because they cannot fall back to the natural environment, the ecosystem where they could make a living out. So if everyone else is suffering, but people from Niger Delta, theirs is worse because they cannot fall back to nothing. And this government too has not been fair to the Niger Delta people. You recall that what's called again? Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs have been removed and now made it to now oversee the entire regions of Nigeria.
Well, you have the NDDC, the commission.
Just like we have the commission or the similar kind of this in other regions. Southwest have their own, Southeast, Northeast, and all around. Now, the Niger Delta Ministry was not actually working. Instead of trying to make it work, the powers that be decided to took it out completely. Now, do you know that the fact that, you know, though it's common with Nigeria, that didn't start with this government, but this government ought to do more. In the sense that you can't move from Benin to Warri. The road is not there. The road is not there. You can't move from Uyo to Calabar. People now have to resort to going by sea at the risk of sea pirates and all that. And these are the places where the wealth of the nation comes from.
So Mr. Aranta, what would you say to this perspective that, yes, Nigeria relies almost totally on oil that comes from the Niger Delta and some other parts of the country, but majorly from the Niger Delta region of the country. And so because of that, perhaps the people from there have not done enough to get skills that they need. You just said it here, okay, they can't go to the farm, they can't do fishing, but you have a lot of oil and gas activities going on there, but how much effort have the people from the region taken to get empowered, to get skills, so that they can be relevant to the economic activities of the area?
You know, even the NDDC you mentioned, it is run from Abuja. I don't know if you're aware. It's run from Abuja. So a few people from Niger Delta are placed in some of the positions, but they are doing the bidding of their master. That's the fact. Do you know, I went to NDDC, the whole gate, the people at the gate, none of them, all they speak is, Hausa. The security men that will give you access to the facility. So you remember when the president of the Senate, when he was minister of that minister of Niger Delta. Remember when that probe where he came to the house, and the famous honorable minister, off your mic. He was trying to tell them, the people amongst them there, how many people are from Niger Delta amongst the people there who were taking the contracts of NDDC, and then how many of these contracts are executed? I feel that the Nigerian state has been very, very unfair to Niger Delta people. I personally, with my group, traveled to Oloibiri, the place where oil was first, discovered, the first oil head in Nigeria, around 1958. We went there to see things for ourselves. The place is desolate. In fact, I was watching the other program the other day. The second place where oil was discovered is in Nisoko land. And there's no road to the place. Meanwhile, the wealth from this region has been used to develop other parts of Nigeria, and it's unfair. Nigeria treats Nigeria people as if we are like a conquered people. Do you know that for you to move from Benin to Port Harcourt, you will meet over 50 checkpoints? We are like a conquered people. A kind of army of occupation has taken over our space.
So what would you like to see? What do you think would be a fair treatment of the Niger Delta region?
Okay. Are you also aware that virtually every part of Nigeria, apart from the south, and southeast, have rail connections, rail line? Now we don't have roads, and nobody's thinking about rail. And in the wisdom of late President Yar'Adua, he created a committee, a technical committee that was saddled with the job of drawing out a road map to the development of Niger Delta. That was how the NDDC, the Niger Delta Ministry, and the Presidential Amnesty Program and all that came to being. But those people that were trained, they were supposed, that was the first phase. They were supposed to, when they go after the training, they're supposed to take them on to the second stage, so that you can, because if somebody goes to train, you must put the person somewhere where the person will be gainfully employed. So you were saying, like Niger Delta people, we don't have lazy people in Niger Delta. Those you see that are lazy are the people Nigerian state have made lazy. So what I'm saying is that the Nigerian states have not been fair to Niger Delta.
What would be fair? What do you think they could do now? For instance, as President Bola Tinubu celebrates 2 years in office, he has 2 years more and all that. What would you like to see? Maybe what he does?
First and foremost, they should demilitarize our environment. Our people are being put through torture. At every point, the roads are so bad, so the area that you have a little semblance of smooth road network, that's where you see the checkpoints. And those checkpoints are not there to do anything but to extort the people. So are we a conquered people that every point there's a police checkpoint, Is it fair? Then secondly, the road should be fixed. I understand there's a project ongoing, the coastal road, Lagos-Calabar coastal road, whatever that means, or whatever it is. Before you start building a high-capacity road that's going to go up in trillions of naira, you should at least take care of at least fix the ones already in existence, so so that people can, commute freely. Goods and services can flow. But there's no road in our place. Then rail line, why can't there be a rail system? After all, this is where the money comes from. Why can't there be a rail system that will help people move from Port Harcourt to Calabar, along connect the southeast? Why? Why can't there be? These are the basic things. You see, what the government has been doing, they've been very tokenistic in their approach, whereby they just see a few people, they settle them and all that. These are just plans to, water down the effect of the Niger Delta people, so that if they want to make any arrangements, after all, they give your people money. When we are growing up, when an adult, a dubious adult, wants to play tricks on the small child, they will eat the food up and they use oil, their hand, and rub on the mouth or the lips of the...
Maybe the people of Niger Delta too should stop collecting the small money.
Are they not Nigerians?
And ask the government to come and do a wholesome...
This system has weaponized poverty.
All right, Mr. Somi Ranta, the Chief Executive Officer of STEAM Group, thank you so much, and we do hope that your voice goes out there to the authorities in charge. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll head to the markets with Will Ibong. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Time to get to the markets now with Will Ibong. Markets resume today, and Will has green. Perhaps that's a hint.
Yeah, when you wear green, there's something that just comes upon you. It's just you're flowing in green pastures. Definitely the markets resumed. As like, so I was actually thinking I'll see profit taking maybe after the Muslim holiday, all the salah, the meat, and everybody wants to come back, to the grind. But I just saw that, there's more green in the market, and though we saw some downturns from, MTN Nigeria, just a bit of profit taking.
Yeah, I mean, MTN really surged last week, so it's very expected
that you see profit taking in that, and maybe Aradel and the rest of it. But all in all, overall, the market is still in the green, and I hope that the market closes in the green. I don't want to wear this for nothing. Anyways, the major stock markets in Africa resumed from the Muslim holiday with positive sentiment. Nigeria's NGX was trading about 0.25%. GSE in South Africa was also in positive territory, 0.3% up. Elsewhere, Egypt's EGX also in green territory at about 0.7%. You're going to have that on the screen. Meanwhile, Nairobi Securities Exchange, which resumed trading yesterday, which is Monday, traded up. That was what it closed with yesterday, nearly 1%. But let's dive into what's happening at the NGX and what stocks investors are buying or fading, as we resume from the holiday. Joining us is Oluwatobi Adesanya, equity trader at Zcrest Securities Limited. Good afternoon, Oluwatobi. It's good to have you on the show.
Good afternoon, Will. Thank you so much for having me.
Toby, the market has resumed. I was discussing with Enid. I was expecting some profit taking, but yeah, there is a profit taking, but not as significant as I was not saying I'm hoping, but just MTN Nigeria, we see some, profit taking there, Aradel. Why investors still very bullish even after all the spending?
Yes, I mean, like you mentioned, there's profit taking. Even if you look at last week's performance, it was largely positive, especially Thursday, which was the last trading week that we had last week. The performance was very positive. In fact, one would expect that starting the new week, investors will start taking profits. However, we are even seeing more demands in the market. Like you mentioned, MTN earlier, at the beginning of the market, MTN was not down, but at some point, MTN lost about 2%. And in fact, the demand for MTN corporately is even about 7 times more than what we have on offer. So that shows that even as there are people that are maybe taking profits, there are other investors that are highly interested in coming into the market.
Okay, so for MTN Nigeria in particular, what's really driving it? What's news in the market is pushing investors into that? Yes, we did know that the rates tariffs are higher now, and there have been some, news here and there. But what in particular is driving investors to buy more of MTN Nigeria at this moment?
So I would say majorly fundamentals, because as of March Q1, if you look at from the beginning of the year, MTN started the year with, for as low as 200 naira. But right now, if you look at it, it's already trading above 300 naira. So people are looking at fundamentals, and their Q1 results, being in the positive zone after recording loss, all through last year. So that also gives investors some level of confidence that things are getting better. Even macroeconomic indicators are getting better, and hopefully ahead of Q2 results too. So we are seeing investors taking position. So it's more of fundamentals, yeah, that I would say is driving MTN. And like we also saw in Airtel's results, which is a major competitor for MTN. So Airtel also results was not bad. So we are seeing renewed hope and interest in the telecommunication sector. So MTN is majorly fundamentals.
Okay, for Aradel, it's a bit, well, I want to say the stock is a bit here and there because investors seem to, since it listed on the NGX, investors seem to not care so much about it because it keeps losing in the market. Yeah, it gains today and loses the next minute. We did see that rally because of, the dividend payout, 22 naira per share. But after that, we're seeing profit taking. Is Aradel overpriced in the market?
So for RD, I would say if we look at the history of RD on the NGX, it was trading on NASD before it listed on NGX, and there are people who have gotten it at a very low price. In fact, if some people say sell as 200, 300, 400, they will still be making profit on it. So in as much as the price is going down, there are people who would still want to sell because they enter into the stock at a very low price. So which means so for the stock not coming on to the NGX, so I mean we have been seeing it for a while now at around 500 levels, 490, 500, 520 thereabout. So in as much as there are people taking profits, there are also people buying into it. And like I said, so many investors that bought it from NASD, it was very low as at that point. So now, so it would always be a good point for them to exit because they got it at a very low price.
Okay, but Aradel was projected to match his pairs like, say, Seplat and Total Energies, but we're not seeing it moving in that direction, that trajectory. Do you think it's going to hit 1,000, maybe say this year? What, is it going to be trading at 500 levels for, we don't know, for how long?
So, when Aradel listed, I mean, we saw it traded for about 800 naira. I mean, as far as high as 800 naira before it started declining. So, I mean, like the stocks you mentioned, like Seplat and the like. So, if we look at their own trajectory, I mean, they did not just get to like 1,000 level at a go. So, there was a kind of trajectory. So, looking at Aradel, like I mentioned, it came from a different platform, which is NASD. So, now being on the NGX, so there are people who have bought it lower and they want to take profits. However, but if you look at the fundamental aspect, I mean, it's a company that we are hoping that, I mean, they are big of fundamentals, and we are hoping that fundamentals would drive the company. I would say for a long term, it's a good stock to have for a long term. But just that during the short term, we'll be seeing a lot of buying and selling, trading activities that might drive the price upwards today or down tomorrow. But over a certain period of time, we'll see it go up.
Are there any dark horses in the market? Because sometimes in the middle of the year, at the end of the year, you see its stock skyrockets probably 1,000%, and then you're wondering, where was it before? So is there any stock in the market now investors should be looking at and saying, oh, this is a dark horse, I should be picking this stock up, or I should be watching this stock? Is there any stock like that in the market that investors, right now, stocks are at overbought levels, like the ASI is climbing up to 115,000. Do we see any stock, that has not probably gained as much in value, but there is still growth potential for that stock as we speak?
So I won't mention any stock in particular. I'll just give some color as to what to look out for because there's always opportunities in the market. So if one could take time and maybe do some research or reach out to their stockbrokers, there are always stock with potential and opportunities. It's just that, let's say, a stock that will move today, most likely you might not know yesterday. So, but if you are doing your research, your fundamental analysis, and you are seeing that yes, this stock would most likely go up, and it has that potential to appreciate in terms of price, and looking at the dividend returns as well. So it is just better to position ahead of the long term. So not like someone coming to the market because, oh, I need a stock that will give me 1,000 returns in the next 1 month or next week. So it is also important to look at the fundamentals of the stock because it's a very major factor in the market.
Okay, so first trading day after the Muslim holiday, Toby, what are you seeing? The market is in the green right now, but do you think we'll get a reversal and go to the red? But if not, how do you see the market closing? And what stocks are investors trading currently to move the market either to the green or red?
Okay, I mean, stocks that I can say that investors are trading on every right now, I'll say banking names, For example, GT4, so it's currently the most traded stock in terms of volume and value. So as regards market direction, all things being equal, so I expect the market to close in the green because when the market opened this morning, the ASI gained as high as 60 basis points. So before we saw decline in MTN, Arado, so currently it's around 20 levels. So barring any decline in any bellwether stock, so I expect the market to close in the green.
We'll hold that. We'll hold to that projection, and we'll meet at the close of business. Toby, thank you so much, Oluwatobi Adesoya, equity trader, Crest Securities. Always good to have your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's move on now to the Middle East and see. Positive sentiments at intraday for major stock markets in the Gulf. Dubai was trading up 0.1%. Abu Dhabi also in green territory, 0.28%. Let's look at other markets. Saudi is still closed for the Muslim holidays. That's the home of Mecca. But let's see, the Qatari index is up at intraday 1.31%. Now let's move to the US, where stock futures were little changed in pre-market trade on Tuesday as investors waited for more insight on trade discussions between the U.S. and China, which have continued today. Now, Dow Jones Industrial Average futures fell 0.05%. We saw a marginal climb for the Nasdaq and the S&P futures, but these moves follow a muted day on Wall Street as investors say they're keeping an eye on the trade talks between officials from the two countries. Traders are looking for signs of a deal that doesn't involve the countries enforcing lofty tariffs on one another. Investors will also watch for Tuesday for small business data due later today, and that comes ahead of closely watch reports on consumer and producer inflation, which is slated for later this week. Now let's head to Asia now. We see the markets closing mixed on Tuesday as investors awaited further details on the U.S.-China trade talks, which was slated to continue today. This is day 2 of that talk. We hope to get positive results. Officials from both countries held trade talks in London on Monday. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer meeting with their Chinese counterparts led by Beijing's Vice Premier Ho Lifeng. Japan's benchmark, we saw it ending the day up 0.32%. Positive sentiments there as a result of that talk. South Korea markets rose for the 5th consecutive session. We're seeing it up 0.56%. We're also seeing the Hang Seng in China, however, down 0.08%. Mainland China is also down, closing in the red, 0.44%. We're going to have that. Meanwhile, India's benchmark Nifty 50 was flat in positive territory, though 0.00%. We're hoping to see a bit more, maybe they're overly cautious, but maybe more positive sentiment at the end of the talks between the U.S. and China. Hopefully something good is coming out of there. I'm sure that policy you proposed to Trump is going to come to fruition.
I hope so, Will. I hope I'm that powerful. Thank you so much
Yes, you are.
for the market. Right, let's head to Berlin. And of course, the trade talks going on in London is also a factor there. But first, let's see what's happening with investors right there. Hi, Lars. Good afternoon. And what are investors doing intraday?
Hello, Ini. I'm sorry I didn't catch you now, but it's good to be with you anyway. But Ini, I didn't hear you quite well, but I know we want to have a look at markets quickly, and I hate to disappoint you here, but not too much going on. The FTSE 100 up a little bit, the CAC 40 over in France not moving at all, it seems, and the DAX in negative territory today. We're back in trading, at least after a long weekend, of course, yesterday being a holiday. Now, we're not seeing much action, and maybe there is a reason for that, clearly, that all eyes are still on London, of course, where we see those current trade deals between the US and China stretching on for another day. So far, of course, there are no news out on what the delegations from Washington and from Beijing are planning on, what they might agree on. So we're just waiting, really. If you look at what's going on in Frankfurt, speak to a couple of people in the market, everybody's just asking those same questions. What's coming out of this, if any major news at all? However, when we do get news, it's likely that it will indeed influence markets, but that could be later today or, of course, just later in the week.
And there I was, Lars. I was hoping you could give me a hint of what's the conversation going on right there in London between the US and China, but I think you do have some numbers coming out.
Yes, and they are also about trade and about that entire story that we have all seen developing between the US and China. And, Ini, I would have loved to give you an update on London, but of course, we're all just waiting. We're all standing outside waiting for news from the inside to come out. But, let's look at trade in general. And it is interesting how fast we see things progress, how fast numbers are actually changing in this trade war. The US, of course, has that huge trade imbalance with China that was at the root of Donald Trump's recent action, including tariffs of up to 145% here against that nation. Now, nobody at this point, of course, knows how long-term that relationship will turn out, but we are seeing, looking at the very latest numbers, what it does here. We're seeing that China's exports to the US currently are down 35%. That's for the month of May, and compared to a year earlier, China exporting almost 30 billion, $28.8 billion worth of goods, to be precise, to the U.S. in May, compared to $44 billion a year earlier. Imports dropped too by a much smaller amount. That, of course, is an entirely different story that has much more to do with economic challenges within China, not so much with trade. So, Ini, back to the trade story, and another interesting figure pops out. China's export in general, they actually grew by almost 5%.
That's a lot. That's a lot, Lars. But where is that growth coming from?
What's actually coming from Europe, Ini, as many people had been expecting, and it is Germany indeed, to a very large part. China's exports to the European Union are up 12% compared to a year ago, and exports to Germany went up over 21%. So we are seeing how the trade war between the US and China does indeed have a major effect here on our shores. It was, in fact, what a lot of economists had been fearing. Chinese firms have had all these products that they had produced already, and since most of them can't be sold currently to the US at, at least at an economically interesting price, they have to go somewhere else. And with the Chinese domestic demand being down, like I just mentioned too, there aren't really that many customers left. There's essentially Germany and other EU countries. And then, of course, a lot, probably for further trade, went to some of the Southeast Asian neighbors there, especially Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, well, realignment globally is what we are seeing, and we hope Africa can find its way and plug in also, Lars. But thank you so much for bringing us up to date.
Thank you, Ini.
Talking about Africa, let's come back home now. We're starting from here in Nigeria. Good news. The price of cooking gas reduced by 7% in the last 2 weeks. So a price can actually decline. Sounds good, but let's get more on that now with Tomiwa Ajewale. He's an analyst with financial derivatives company. Well, Tomiwa, this is good news, and it's a rare one, to hear in Nigeria that the price of a commodity actually declined.
Yeah, it's a good welcome. It's a welcome initiative. Well, what we've seen in price of cooking gas this year, although the price are currently down, the price has been a little bit volatile. So, but recently in April, there was a removal of the VAT on gas imports. So because Nigeria actually still relies on a lot of imports, most of the gas that we consume domestically, about 60% is actually imported. So that leaves the prices exposed to exchange rate dynamics and of course to whatever is happening in the global energy space. So the removal of the VAT has made the cost of importing gas cheaper, and that has helped to ease prices. Also, exchange rate has also, although it's been relatively stable, is appreciated a little bit. So that has also allowed the import cost to drop, and is why we've been able to see this decline in the price of gas.
Yeah. So when we look at these factors that have driven the price down, does it look sustainable?
So again, the fact that we import a lot of it means that we're always going to be exposed to things that are a little bit out of our control. So I mean, we're talking about whatever is happening in the global energy space. That's a little bit out of our control, and that, although for now looks to be stable, anything can happen which can shift the dynamics. So if we're going to be able to be able to control and the gas prices and say it's going to be stable, we need to cut off that reliance a bit. And of course, if our exchange rate is able to be stable, we expect that the gas prices too will remain relatively stable. So yes, if our exchange rate remains stable, if we continue to see stability in global prices, price might remain the same, but the likelihood of that happening is quite low.
Yeah, so I was hoping to say, oh, perhaps now that the cooking gas price is on a decline, it will feed into food inflation. Perhaps, even if it's a little portion of price reduction we see in food, that would be welcomed.
Yes, yes. So I mean, cooking gas is just to cook food. So definitely, if there's a fall in the price of cooking gas, it's going to lead to a decline in the cost of cooking. Because I mean, if you are buying your food and if you are using cooking gas to cook, basically, if you have a fall in the price, it's going to help to ease with food inflation. So yes, that's a welcome development.
All right, so we'll see if that fits into food inflation. Thank you so much, Tomiwa Ajewale, for your
Thank you for.
time and perspective. We'll go to other African countries now. Although May saw fewer individual deals than in previous months, with 36 startups announcing raises of $100,000 or more, investors wrote larger checks. So fewer numbers, larger volumes. 7 ventures secured $10 million each, a sign that interest in African tech remains strong, even if slightly more concentrated. So Egypt was the undeniable star of the month, accounting for 6 of those 7 biggest deals and leading the continent in startup funding so far this year. Egyptian startups have raised more than $330 million this year, representing 31% of all funding on the continent. The biggest highlight was Nawi, an Egyptian pop tech platform that raised $75 million, $52 million in equity through a Series A round led by Partech, and $23 million in debt. It's now the largest ever prop tech deal on the continent. Kenyan traders will now be required to register for value-added tax, that's VAT, manually through the Kenya Revenue Authority offices. KRA suspended the online registration exercise, citing the loss of billions of shillings through fraudulent schemes by ghost traders. The authority notes that it undertook the exercise to clean up its registers to end the missing trader scheme, where rogue traders have been presenting fictitious invoices. The taxman urged traders to visit offices and present proof of identity while registering for VAT, terming the exercise as Know Your Customer strategy. According to Business Daily, ghost traders are defrauding the taxman of an estimated 2.5 billion Kenyan shillings per month. And KRA says that the loss will come to an end through the Know Your Customer campaign, as it will provide the authority with an overview of who is carrying out transactions. We're still in Kenya, where the price of solar systems are set to increase by about 2,000 Kenyan shillings if a proposal to include 16% VAT on the product is passed under the 2025 finance bill. According to GOGLA, which is a global association for off-grid solar industry, the tax hike risks shrinking Kenya's off-grid solar market by 20% in the next 12 months, curtailing electricity expansion to remote and underserved communities. The association adds that the plan also threatens over 10,000 jobs nationwide. In 2024, Kenya's solar sector supported an estimated 30,000 jobs and contributed over 4 billion shillings in taxes. Away from Kenya now, the government of Switzerland has awarded a grant of $77 million, as equivalent of about 65 Ghanaian shillings, to support the development of a resilient and forward-looking economy in Ghana. The grant was made possible through the new State Secretariat for Economic Affairs Cooperation Program to help create jobs, improve the business environment, enhance effective governance, and promote environmental preservation in the next 4 years. As a result, the Seco Ghana Cooperation Program was launched last Thursday with the aim of building the capacity of the country to withstand global challenges and generate prosperity for citizens. Launching the Ghana Cooperation Program in Accra, the Swiss ambassador to Ghana, Simon Giga, explained that the program was designed to help the country revitalize its economy to withstand challenges. And the World Bank has approved an initial $250 million in financing for the first phase of the Inga 3 hydropower project in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with its total funding possibly reaching $1 billion over multiple phases. The 4,800 megawatts Inga 3 project, projected to cost over $10 billion, is one component of DRC's 40 gigawatts Grand Inga project. The Inga 3 phase would divert about one-sixth of the Congo River's flow into the Gundi Valley, where a dam on the Bundi River would create a reservoir with a surface area of about 15.5 kilometers square. The land area to be flooded per megawatts generated would be among the smallest in the world, according to the World Bank. Now, the bank is returning to top-down mega dams that threaten communities and ecosystems while sidelining community-driven, decentralized renewable alternatives. The World Bank's first approval funding to develop Inga 3 in 2014, but withdrew over governance concerns. The project has since attracted attention from a set of actors aiming to get the project off the ground again, and we hope it does get off the ground at this time. Let's do crypto now and see what's happening. I'm sure you've heard ChatGPT suffers hours. I had about 3 hours of power outage, but even up till now, it's still fluctuating. But let's look at the numbers first and see what the numbers look like at this time. It's $109,573.85 for Bitcoin. It went up to about 110, but we see now in the last 24 hours, it's gained 1.51, and that's. And Ethereum, I think, is a more exciting one at this time. It's gone beyond the 2,500 now, 2,700 and plus. Went up more than 8%. That's a huge move in 24 hours, more than 8%. But it's mostly red. I guess it could be connected to the talk going on in London and then the relative stability we have seen. Wonder what the US and China will come out from those meetings the second day now with. But the market seems happy at this time. Now let's go back to our headlines. The first being that ChatGPT suffering 3-hour worldwide outage, affecting millions of users, with OpenAI investigating elevated error rates, is what they call it across most services. OpenAI's ChatGPT and Sora video service have been experiencing worldwide outage for over 3 hours now. Started about 3 a.m. That's 8 a.m. Nigerian time, with only Playground remaining functional. And this follows previous ChatGPT outages in 2024 after GPT-40 expansion and Apple Intelligence Integration Plus. 2023 DOTS attack linked to Russian hackers. I'm sure we would, in the coming days, we were going to get more about the investigation that's going on this, and then we'll hear perhaps the source of it. But I mean, I'm scared to hear about what the consequences or what might have happened in the midst of all of this power outage. Now, South Korea's ruling party has moved to establish the country's first integrated framework for digital assets as a part of President Lee's pledge to support the crypto economy. Promise said, promise being kept. So that's it. South Korea introduces landmark crypto bill to curb U.S. stablecoin influence. They say on June 10, the Democratic Party submitted the Digital Asset Basic Act, a legislative proposal aimed at regulating cryptocurrencies, stablecoins, and virtual asset service providers. The bill is being led by Min Byon, a Democratic Party lawmaker and chair of the party's Digital Asset Committee, and he has helped shape President Lee's crypto agenda during the campaign, and he has since taken the lead in driving the push for Korean won-based stablecoin. Everybody seems to be talking about stablecoin now. We're having a Nigeria stablecoin one of these days, I wonder. Well, in other news now, Cardano has launched Cardinal. It's a new protocol aimed at connecting Bitcoin to the Cardano decentralized finance ecosystem. And the announcement made by Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson on yesterday during the Bitcoin 2025 conference marks a strategic shift to draw liquidity from Bitcoin's vast network into Cardano's smart contract infrastructure. Well, wherever Ladi is, I know he's going to be very excited about this, and he will follow up on some of this. But I mean, these are the headlines from the crypto space at this time, and we see the market looking green. Everybody seems a bit relaxed at this time. We're getting positive vibes coming through President Trump from London. You know, he says his team are giving him some good news. So perhaps that will keep the market going, even if it's for just a bit. Hopefully that meeting will end with smiles on the faces of both parties, because these are the two major economies of the world, and whatever decision pronouncement they make will always affect, you know, the larger global economy, including Nigeria, especially through the price of oil. It's the second day today. We don't know how long it will last, but certainly I'm sure we'll hear something by the close of today, perhaps another hint from President Trump, and then we would know what may be the end of that. Anyway, so that's it on the program, Business Incorporated today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. We've gone round and giving you updates from the world of business and economy, especially from Africa. We'll do it again tomorrow, God's grace. But Nigeria's market, the NGX, is still looking good. So if you haven't hopped in, perhaps you want to look that way, even though we're looking for how to diversify our listings and get more people on board. But perhaps it's not too late for you. Will Yvonne will give you updates on how the close of market during the 10 p.m. news tonight. But I'll see you tomorrow, God's grace, with fresh news and a fresh trip around the world of business. I'm John McQuarrie. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.